So hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Sanskar, and in this video you will learn how to create this beautiful and awesome quiz maker app with Flutter. So this app have multiple features, some of which include having a sign in sign up screen you by using Firebase. We will also have a database of Firebase Firestore in which we will save our quiz and will fetch it from there. We will be also using streams and much more, which you will be learning in this. So without any further ado, let me first show you how the app works, and then we will continue creating this. So as you can see, it will work on both Android and iOS. There are some platform specific tasks which we will do to make sure it works perfectly. So as you can see, this is the home screen where all the different quizzes which I have created are available. These are not fetched from an API. These are the quizzes which I personally created with the help of the app itself. So first let me sign out, and let's click on sign up, and let's say it the Indian app guy, and then I can say the Indian app guy at gmail.com. And then I can say the password QWERTYUIO. That's not my other thing's password, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now we have all these different quizzes available which I have created. So first, let me show you how we can create a quiz, and we will play the same quiz which we created. So let me click on this. So if we click on that floating action button, you can see we will be landing on this screen which is called a quiz, create quiz screen. In this we can give it image URL, which is kind of an option, and we can give it a title and description. So for example, let's say this is a Flutter quiz, okay, and then I can give this quiz tests your Flutter knowledge. Is correct or not? I don't know. Okay, so I'll go ahead and copy this URL. So this is something I just visited unsplash.com, and right click on the image and click on open image, and you have, right, and that's how this works. So I can now copy that URL, paste it here, and click on create quiz. So it will create the quiz for me. Now I can give it a question. So for example, just for the simplicity, let me go for something like A4. Let's make it something little bit related to Flutter itself, and then we can continue. So we can click on add question. That question will be added. Now I can say B for, what is B for? Let's just go with normal. I'm thinking something right now. Cat, dog, and apple. Okay, now we can click on add question, and it will be added. Now when we are done adding questions, we can just click on submit, and our quiz will be added. So this is the one. We have the Flutter quiz. This quiz tests your Flutter knowledge. We can play this one, but as you know, the questions are very small and all. So let's play this one, which have some of the real questions, how they will be presented, right? So as you can see in this quiz screen, which is a quiz play screen, in this screen we have multiple things. The first of which is the total number of questions which we have, and then how many of them we have answered correctly, how many of them we have answered incorrectly, and how many of them are not attempting. So let's play the quiz now. So the first question is this. I'm not good at history, so I'm just gonna answer it randomly. So it's wrong, so it's added in the incorrect. If I click on this one, it's correct, so it adds 1 to a correct option. Now, which among the following, I think it's government spending, so let's just go with the second, so it's incorrect. So you can see it's updated real time. So let's do this and select this. So as you can see, our total not attempted becomes 0, total incorrect becomes 4, and correct becomes 1, and total is 5. So now I can click on this floating action button to submit the quiz, and we will have this very simple screen that will show you answered 1 answer correctly and 4 answers incorrectly. We can click on this go to home, and we will be sent to this screen. So as the app demo is done, let's go ahead and build this awesome app. Okay, so let's get started by closing this one. So let me just close it and put the iPhone here, and here's the app. So first let me create a new project. So I'll do that from the terminal. If you want, you can do that through the IDE. I just have a habit. So desktop slash Flutter projects, basically providing a directory, and inside the directory I want to say Flutter create, and let's name it quiz maker, and I'll hit enter. So once we will hit enter, it will create the app for us, and once it is done, you can just go ahead, click on file, open, go to the directory where you have created the project. It can be desktop directly if you haven't provided anything or something like that. So I have mine here, and the name of that is quiz maker. So let's see, where are you? Okay, there it is. I can click on open, and there we have it. Okay, so how we are going to start this? So the first thing which I would like to do is we will require this home screen. We will have sign in, sign up. So let's first start with sign in and sign up screen. So I'll log out, and let me take a screenshot of this so that we can see what we want to build and build it at the same time. So let me minimize this one, and where do we have that screenshot? There we go. So let me open that up and put it at this side. Take my code here, take it here a little bit, just a second, a little bit smaller, things of that nature, yeah, around that. Okay, now we have the screen, and let me take it just a little updates. Okay, so now we have this, and let me take a new screenshot for this one as well, and now we can close this app. Okay, so we have our app here. Now let me open up my iPhone and run this there. Till it is running, let's do what we have to. So the first thing which we always do, we will get rid of all these comments and these one as well, and let's get rid of this stateful widget which is called my home page, because we are going to create all the widgets ourselves. So we will go inside this liblib folder, and we are going to create a new folder or package depending on you're using VS Code or Android Studio. So in this we are going to create a new package named view, or rather I name it views. So after that I can click on refactor. Inside of that, let me create a Dart file called sign in. What is happening? Okay, let me just a second. Sign in .dart. Then I can go ahead in the view. I can create sign up .dart, and then we can create something like home.dart. Then what do we need? Also, what I usually do is I also create one other screen which is going to be called authenticate .dart. We will see what that is in a second, but first let's go ahead in our sign in, and let's import material, and then I'm going to say stateful widget which is going to be called sign in. Okay, I hope the font size is understandable enough. Okay, so inside the main.dart we are going to say sign in. As it is not imported, it will not be visible, but here's what we can do: get rid of the title, then click on this, click on import. Okay, so if I will save this now, you can see we have this black screen. We don't want this debug banner, so I'm going to go ahead over here. Actually, outside of this, I'm going to say debug show checker mode banner false, which will get rid of this. Okay, now what do we want? Well, the first thing which we don't want a black screen, we want a white screen. So how we can do that? We will go ahead in our sign in and change our container to scaffold. What is a scaffold? A scaffold is used to utilize all the different material widgets which are available for us, being that app bar, being that a floating action button, and much more. So in our scaffold, even just by creating a scaffold, you will be able to see that we have a white screen. But the one thing which you can notice, our batteries and the signal and time is lost because they are also white and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and create our app bar. So for our app bar, you may notice this quiz maker logo of ours. It's just two text, or you can say it's just actually one text. By using rich text, we can actually do this, give a particular text some color and leave the rest of it. So that's what we are going to do. So let me create a new package for that, which will hold all these different widgets which are going to be utilized. all over the app, because this is going to be created once and will be utilized in multiple screen. So I'm going to say widget excuse me, and in the widgets I'm going to create a new .file which is going to be called, let's just go ahead and create widgets, and inside that I can say import material.art. Okay, please scale this up. Okay, now we have to create this. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's going to be called app bar. So how we create these kind of widgets, there are different multiple options. You can either create a full stateful widget, a stateless widget by using st the shortcuts and by creating those widget, or you can create something like this function where we are giving a return type as a widget and we are giving the name of the function as app bar. We will have this argument section where if we want we can accept arguments, which we may require. Most of the time we use context and stuff, but yeah, so inside of this we will return whatever we want to return. That's what we mentioned, that we are going to return a widget, so we are going to return that. So how we can do that? We are going to use a rich text. Now the fastest way to do this, which I always do, is just search rich text Flutter, and we have this available, and you can just go ahead, just have this and paste it here. So now as you can see, we need this context over here, so I can just go ahead and type build context and type context. Okay, so these are the arguments of our function which is called app bar, which is returning a widget. Okay, so now if I will save this, okay, we are going to end this with a semicolon. Also we need to use this to see it, right? So inside the sign in, I'm going to go ahead and say app bar. Inside the app bar we will have title, and in this title I will provide the app bar. Now we need to import this, so I'm going to click on import library, quiz maker and stuff like that, and it requires some arguments, which is the context, so I'm going to provide that. Now if I will save that, you can see we have this hello world, and there is a yellow like underline below that, so that's because of this styling, which is default text style. So we don't want to use the default text style. Rather what we do, we will use a text style. You can provide any font size. For me, I'm going to go ahead for 22. Now if I will save this, you can see something like this, but that's not what we want, right? What we want is something like this. So how can we do that? So as we can see, the quiz over here have a symbol, but we also want to provide the color to the quiz, right? So we are going to get rid of this this text, and we are going to play in these. So let me just copy this top text span and paste it here. Okay, so we don't want bold, we want quiz, and we want maker. Okay, now let me do one thing which will help a little. Okay, so now you can see this is the quiz, and this is what it looks like now. We don't want this to be bold, so I'm going to get rid of that font property, and I'm going to provide it a font width of W400 maybe. I think that's going to be fine. Okay, I think 5 works, so we can go with 5. Also, let me get rid of the background color so that you can see what exactly we want, but before that let's just provide that color so that we don't have any problem after that. So I can say black 54. Not sure if it will look the same. You will know when we will get rid of the background color. You can say colors dot blue. So now it's going to be invisible. So let's go ahead and say background color, colors dot we can go ahead for transparent, but you can see there will be a black color, which is actually the elevation. So I'm going to say elevation is going to be 0.0. If I will save that, you can see we don't have that. Also, we want that bright, battery and stuff. So for that, you can use a property called brightness. We can say brightness.light, which is going to get our battery signal and time back. Okay, so now what do we want? Well, I can see this maker is quite a little bold than this one, right? So what I can do for that is basically I can first save this, and I can copy this, but this seems a little bit bold than this one, this quiz. So what can we do? I think we can increase this to something like 6, which is going to work much better. Okay, looks good enough to me. We can continue. Okay, so we have the title ready. Now what we want, we are going to go, there is a option of widget which is body inside the scaffold. So let's go ahead and create a container in that. I usually create container whenever I'm using any kind of column and all, so that I can just provide them padding if required. So then I'm going to create a column. Why I'm creating a column? Whenever we want to arrange different widget in a vertical format, then we use column. So here we have these text field. What is text field? Text field is a widget which is used to accept text from the user. So as you can see, these are the text field, and we also have a button, and then we have this text. So all of these different widgets are aligned vertically. So to align different widget vertically, we use column. So the first thing which we can see in this whole body is we have this a lot of space over here, right? So for that, I'm just going to go ahead and say spacer. This basically tries to cover as much space as possible. And also I'm going to then add the text fields. So I'm going to say text field. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and use text form field. Text form field provides us an option of validator. So if I write, not correct email, we can check and we can show an error in a material design. It shows that red kind of. So for using that, first let's wrap our container, which includes all these different form fields, with a widget which is going to be called form, not from, form. And over here, what we will do in the text form field, we will just have this hint text, right? As you can see, we have this email written there. So for that, we can say decoration, input decoration, and inside input decoration, we can say our hint text is going to be email. Okay, now what we want? So whenever we write something over here, we want to save that to a string, and also we will require, that validation. For validation, we will require a key for our form. So let's go ahead and create that. So first I'll create the key. So I'll call it form key, which is going to be equals to global key of type form state semicolon. Next, we will create two strings, which is going to be email and password. We will use these strings to save whatever the user writes. So I can say on changed, and we have a function. So it's going to show an error because it's going to return a value. So whenever user writes something, for example, in the email section, I write the Indian app guy @gmail.com, right? So in that case, what will happen? That will be saved or is returned by this value. So now I can save that in our string, which is I have created email. So I can say email is equals to value. So whenever the user updates that, we can save that to a string. Okay. Now for the validator for email, we can create a little bit complex validator, but to go ahead and create a very simple one, we can go ahead and create something like this. Validator works like on changed as well, like it's going to return a value, and from that value we can check how it is. So I can say value dot is empty, which is going to return a boolean value that is that value empty or not. So if the value is empty, which means the value which is written in this email when we are validating the form field, okay, I'll show you how we validate. So when we are validating, it will check what is the value in the field. So that is the value which will be written. So for example, I have written the Indian app guy over here, and then when I click on this sign in button, I am calling that function to validate our form. Then it will return us the Indian app guy @gmail.com. And for this condition, value dot is empty, it will be false because it's not empty, right? So if it is empty, we want to show an error that enter correct email ID, something like that. Or if it's already correct, or let's go ahead and say enter email ID. And if it's already correct, we don't want to show anything, and we rather want to show none. Okay, now it's it says return type of string, but it's okay. So we have to return actually. So I'm going to say return. Okay. Okay. So it's showing an error. Expected. Just a second. Let me do one thing. Okay. So now you can see it in line. So what we have a text form field. We provided it a validator. How validator works? It basically have this function. This function have a value which it provides, which is val. This is the value which the validators find in the text form field, and through that value we can check if that value is empty. We can show a red error that enter email ID, and if it's not empty, then it can be null. so that we can continue forward. So for the next, let me just go ahead and create a sized box. Why am I using sized box? Well, sized box is used to give this a space. We can see there is a little bit of space between password and button. There is a little space between email and password for that. So as this is a vertical space which we want to provide, not a horizontal space which we have like in the don't have an account and sign up. So we will use a height. So for height, I'm just going to go ahead and use something like 6. That should be fine. Let me now copy this text form field and paste it again. Over here it will be used for the password, so I can say password, and over here I can say password. Now if I will save this, you can see it should be visible, but it's at the bottom. That's not what we want, right? We want a little bit up, like we want a little bit space over here, so we want a vertical space. So how do we use a vertical space? We use sized box. So let me go ahead and below this text form field over here, I can use a sized box with a height of something like 80. So now if I will save this, you can see we have a little bit of a bottom spacing over here. Now, as I mentioned before, I have used this container to provide a padding and margin. First, to make sure we are clear about what a padding and margin is. So margin is something like how far you want to be from others, and padding is how much vacant you want to be inside of yourself. So for example, in this particular case, let me first give it a color so that you can see what is happening. Okay, so let me give it colors dot blue, for example. It's just for the representation. So right now you can see this is what our container is. Okay, this is the container and this is how much space it's occupying. Now if I go ahead and say padding edge insets dot symmetry. So what is edge insets and symmetric? Edge insets is basically to provide different values. We can go ahead and provide a symmetric padding from both sides, left and right, top and bottom, in one value only, which means we can provide individually for each one and everyone. We can provide for all from left, top, right, bottom, and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and use symmetric because we want the same padding left and right. So I can say horizontal. In horizontal I can say 24. So if I will save that, you can see we have a space over here, but it's inside the container because this whole blue area is container. Now for the same thing, if I change this with margin, you can see it have that space, but it has been separated. It's not this particular space is not inside the container. So I hope that clears what the margin or the difference between margin and padding is. So let's get rid of the color. We don't want that. So I think margin works fine for now. We can go for padding as well. As you know, like it will look the same. There will not much different. Margin should work fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this sign in button. So let's firstly have some space. For vertical space, what do we use? We use sized box with a height of, let's say something like 14. I think it should work fine. Okay, so this is a button, but it's a little bit of a kind of customized flat button. So let me show you how we can create this kind of button. So we can use a container. Don't worry, we will have an on-click property. I'll show you how to apply a on-click property, on double tap, and different properties to any widget which we have. Okay, so this is container. Now inside the container, we want this container to be like this. Okay, it should take all the space available in the horizontal space according to the width of the display available. Okay, and it will also have the same kind of padding like the above. So that will be already taken care of because we have this inside a container, which container itself has that padding. So that is already being taken care of. For example, if I provided a color blue and provided a simple height, for example 50, you can see it's already taken care of. So that's what we want. So let me just go ahead and give it a child, which is going to be a text. Okay, in that text we can write sign in. So right now you can see the size has been the width of this has been arranged according to the child. We don't want that. We want the width to be as much as it can. So I'm going to say media query.off context dot size dot width. This line of code is used to get the width of the display. We can say height to get the height of the display. Okay, so we have the width, but we don't want the width exactly because we are using a padding of, or actually margin of 24. So 24, that's around 48. So I can just say subtract 48 from the display, and that's all what we want. Okay, looks good, looks fine to me. We want the sign in the center, not at this particular corner. So for that, we can use a property inside the container which is called alignment, and we can say alignment dot center. Okay, which will help us to align this in the center. Looks good. Now we want the sign in to be in white color, So let's go ahead and add style to it. Over here we will say color and colors dot white. Now if I will save that, you can see we have this sign in. I think the font size is also a little bit high, so let's go with something like 16. I think that's fine. Okay, so we don't want this sharp edges, we want a little bit or a lot circular edges, right? So how we can do that? So first let's see how our height is performing. So we don't want this kind of thing, so, and neither I do want to provide that a fixed height, because in some cases like the text size may have some problems. So I'm going to provide that as a padding. So I'll say edge insets dot symmetric, and I'll use a vertical padding in this of around 16 maybe, and I think that looks fine. Now I will go ahead and use decoration, and that is going to be box decoration. Now whenever we are using a box decoration, make sure to cut the color outside of it and paste it inside of it. Otherwise, this is what will happen. We don't want errors, right? Okay, so let's put that color inside it. Now what we want to provide that border radius. Okay, this is called border radius, providing radius to the border, as the name says. So border radius, we will say border radius dot circular. It's the easiest way to provide the border to each and every border. We can go with something like 16, but we want a lot, as much as possible, so we can go with something like 30. I think it looks perfect, and the vertical, I think it's a little bit more than this, so I'm going to go with 18. Okay, I think it's fine. Okay, now we want to have some space, a little bit more maybe, a little more. Okay, that's too much. Yeah, now look, it looks fine. Okay, so we have this email, we have password, we have sign in. Now let's create this one. So in this one, what is happening is when we click on the sign up, we will be sent to the sign up screen, and if we click on sign in, which will be available on that screen, we will be sent to this screen. So to do so, what we are going to do actually is, because we want an on click on this, right? We cannot do that with rich text. So for this particular requirement of ours, I'm going to first create a size box so that we can have a little bit space between this and the button. I don't want that to be too much, so I'm going to go ahead and say around 18. I'm going to create a row. What is row? Well, we use row to create or to arrange different widget in a horizontal manner. So I can say text, not text style, it's a text, and that text is called don't have an account. Okay, and a question mark, of course. Now if I will save this, make sure to end your widget with comma. You can see it's at this side. Okay, let's copy this, paste this, and rather than having this, we will be saying that we want sign up. Okay, looks good. We also are getting that space just by adding that space over here, so it's not a problem. But there is one problem though. We want to provide, let me do this first. We want to have a little bit of more font size, right? We want to increase that. So how we can do that? By using style, text style. So I'm going to go ahead and give it something like 16. I think that looks fine, or maybe around 15 should be working fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and select this style property. So from here to here maybe, or maybe from here to here, and provide that to the sign up as well. Okay, looks good enough, but we don't have that in the, like here, we want that to be in the center. So how can we do that? So, well, this is a row. It aligns different widget in a horizontal manner. So it gives us an option that on its main axis, which is the horizontal, okay, main axis for column will be vertical, main axis for row is horizontal. So I'm going to say main axis, not size, main axis alignment. Okay, so I'm going to say main axis alignment is going to be, so start will set like this. This is main axis alignment start. So okay, all the widgets are starting from the start, but we want this center. So all the elements, all the widgets will be in the center. So if I will save this, you can see it's over here. Okay, looks good, but we want this, underline in that in sign up. So how can we do that? Well, we can use a text style which is called decoration, I think. Decoration, text decoration. What was that? Okay, yeah, it's working. So we have this, and that's what we have in the sign in. Well, good for us. We don't have to create the sign up from the scratch. We will be just using the same thing. Okay, I forgot to do one thing. So as you can see right now, I showed that this is not used. So we have to go ahead and use this key property in form, and we are going to provide this form key over here. Okay, so let's complete this UI first. So I'm going to copy this scaffold, go to sign up, and here I'm going to do all this stuff, import, oops, it's too small, material.dart, I'm going to say stateful sign up, and then using the scaffold. Of course, we need to import some things. For example, this app bar, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to come over here and click on this import library, and we have to create this. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this from here. Okay, and we also need this string, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that as well. In the sign up screen, actually we have one thing more, or let me close this. Okay, so as you can see in our sign up screen, we have one thing more, which is this name. So we are also going to use another screen which is going to be called name, and we will add another text field for that, text form field for that. Okay, so it's going to be called name, and this is going to be enter name, and also the value which is going to be on changed, it is going to be saved inside the name variable. Okay, thing seems fine. Also, this text is going to be already have an account. It's not going to be and account. Sorry for that. And account. COUNT. Fine. And then sign up, we will have sign in. Also, as I mentioned before, we want on-click listener on this button and on this text as well. So how we can do that? We can click on this container on which we want to have that on tap or on click property. We are going to click on this. We will say wrap with a widget, and that widget is going to be called gesture detector. It gives us a lot of options, not just an on tap, but double tap, secondary tap, cancel, drag up, and a lot more than what we are required. But we are just going to go ahead and use the on tap property. So inside the on tap, what do we want? So we are going to call a function for this. So let's do it later on. First, let's give on tap property to our sign in. So I'm going to wrap it with a widget, say gesture detector, and inside that I'm going to say on tap, and in on tap property I'm going to say what do we want. We can just go to sign in. So I'm going to say navigator dot push replacement. Okay, wait a second, sister, what is this? So let me write this first so it will be much easier for you to understand. So sign in. Okay, that's not what we wanted. Yeah, that is what we wanted. We don't need this. Okay, so what am I writing down? So let me show you. Okay, it does look a little bit too much, because of this. You can do it like this. Okay, so what do we have over here? So as you can see, what I did was basically this is navigator.push replacement. Navigator is an option to navigate between the different widgets and different screens you can call, right? The reason why I used push replacement is what I want is if I click on sign up or sign in, it should not stack these screens. So what happens is if I click on, let's say, sign up and used navigator.push, then what it will do, it will push another screen in front of the screen in which we are. So what will happen if the user wants, he can click back on that screen and come back to the screen which he was before. But it's not a kind of a requirement he have, because we are already providing him an option that he can click on sign in to go back to that screen. So that is not required. Also, when we will be sending the user from the sign up screen, sometime we may forget about that screen of sign in, and if he sign up for that, he goes to the home screen. Even when we are replacing the sign up screen, we forgot to close this sign in screen, so he can just click back to the home screen and he will be in the sign in and he will be confused what is happening, right? So that's why, to take care of that, what we will be doing, we will be having push replacement. So when he clicks on that sign in or sign up, the screen will be changed. Okay, so that's how the things are going to work. If you have any doubt, as always, make sure to comment them below and I will be happy to help. Okay, so let's continue forward. So we have the sign in sign up done, and we need to fix some things, but for now the sign in is working. I'm going to copy this on tap function, copy that, go to sign in and apply that to sign up, which is this one, and I'm going to wrap it with a widget which is going to be called gesture detector. In that I'm going to paste that same function, but of course we don't want to go inside the sign in itself. We are going to say sign up. Okay, now I can save that. Now the sign in, so we are inside the sign in right now. So if I click on this, you can see we are in the sign up now. You can click on sign in, and if I do back, so this is how we do back in iOS. So it's not going back because there is no screen before that. Good, it's working fine, it's working perfectly fine. Okay, so now it's time to implement the sign in and sign up functionality by using Firebase. So let me go and open up Firebase. So for that, you just have to go ahead and type firebase.com. And what we will be doing, we will be connecting our app with Firebase. So for this, let me use this one. Okay, and we will just select the account. It will ask you to sign up with a Google account. It will be just easy for you to sign up. Just sign up and create an account. Go to your console, and you will see this add project option. So click on add project. So I'm going to give it name quiz maker and click on continue. Enable Google Analytics for this project. I don't think I'll require that, but it's free. So let's add that. It's going to take a little bit of time while it's creating our project. Since then, let's see what we have and what we have to build and what we have. So we have created the UI only right now for the sign in and sign up screen. Next, what we will do, we will connect it with our Firebase, and then we will, create functions. So let's do that. So I'm going to go inside the lib folder, create a new package, which is going to be called services. Inside this, basically, I will create the different services for our database and for our authentication system. So I'll create a new dart file. I'm going to call that auth.dart. This is going to have a class. I'm not sure. I sometimes feel like the font size is quite large, but let me know your feedback. What do you think? So yeah, as I was mentioning, in this one we will create a class called auth service. So class don't have arguments, so we don't have to use that. Okay, so it's done, and we can click on continue. Okay, before we connect, we need some dependencies in our pubspec.yaml. So for that, just visit pub.dev. Okay, so what do we need? So first of all, we need Firebase Cloud Firestore. We need Firebase authentication. We need shared preference, and much more. So let me just go ahead. To make it faster, let me just go ahead to my last project and add that over here. So let me close this, close that. Okay, so these are the different dependencies which I used. Cached network image. This was used so that we can cache the network image, so that if the user is have loaded the image for once, he don't have to load it again and again. Also, if he is using the app offline, if the image has been loaded already, it will be visible. Then we are using this Cloud Firestore for saving our quiz to our database and then fetching that. We have Firebase authentication. We use provider. We are using so Google Sign is not something which I'm thinking of implementing for this one. We may if we have enough time. So then we have shared reference, and then we have this random string to create some IDs and all. Okay, so let me copy all of these for now. Copy, and of course I will also link the GitHub in the description so that you can go ahead and copy that as well. Okay, so let me hit enter and paste this here. I used Shift Tab for Mac. It will be something similar for Windows as well. Let me get rid of the Google sign-in and click on packages get. So it will take a second or so, and it will be done. Okay, so it's done. Now we can go ahead and create some functions for our authentic auth service, but before that, let's connect our app. So first, let's do that for Android. For Android, you have to go inside the Android folder and then go inside the app build.gradle. Over there, you will find out your package name. which is this one, which is called com.example. Whatever the name you have provided. So just copy that, paste that here, and click on register app. We don't need these are optional as mentioned already. So then click on next, and then it will ask to download this Google services.json file. Just click on that, download that file, and for now let me just save it to the desktop. Show in Finder or show in Explorer according to your operating system. Take this Google services.json and place this inside this app folder. It will show us this pop-up, move file from this to this. Click OK. We have it over here. Great. So what is the next step? Let us go and ask Firebase. So Firebase says go ahead to your project build.gradle and add this dependencies. I will copy that, and this is our app level, this is our project level. So this is our project level build.gradle file, and in that the Firebase says that go to the dependencies and add this line. Okay, then what is next? And also, as you may be watching that this Google is also asking to add this repositories. You major of the chances will already have that. If you don't have, make sure to add this in all project repositories and build script repositories. Okay, let's continue. So now it is asking to go app level build.gradle, which means we have to go inside the app, and this build.gradle we have to update. So what is it asking? So it's asking to first add this apply plugin, which is com.google.gms.google services. We can copy that and place it just below the apply plugin. So I can just do that. Next, what we have is the dependency, which is implementation com.google.firebase. It's not something which we will be using. We are not going to implement this. This is just to connect our app with the Firebase for Android. Once it is done, just click on next, and I'm going to skip this step, but it's done. Okay, so now let me do it for iOS as well. For iOS, what you have to do, you have to click on iOS folder, right click, and click on open iOS module in Xcode. If you are using Windows, it will not be showing this option because you have to download Xcode, and Xcode is only available for Mac. This is not something Flutter and someone can do. This is decided by Apple company itself. So blame them for that. You don't have to say why we did not create and things like that. But yeah, so if you go to the runner over here, you will have this bundle identifier. You have to copy that and paste it over here and click on register app. Then you have to click on download Google services.info.plist. It's like Google Services JSON, which we downloaded for our Android. And I'm going to click on show in folder. I'm going to minimize this, open my Xcode, and go to the runner. Let me just place it a little bit side, and this one over here. Okay, so I can click on runner, I can click on add files to runner, and it will show me this pop-up. I can click on this, drag and drop this, select add, and this is the best way. Actually, you can open the folder and do that, but it's just fastest. And just close this now, and just to confirm, go to the runner and see if we have that. So I can see we have our Google services.infolist.plist file. So okay, it's done. So let's move on to the Firebase and see what's the update. So it's asking next. Okay, so if you have never connected this before, make sure to run this. Copy this code, open up your terminal or CMD, and paste it here and just enter. Then run this as well, which is the same thing. This is just for the first time if you have don't have Firebase SDK. This is not important, not to be done for now. You can just escape. Okay, so our iOS and Android both are connected. So what is the next step? Next step is we want to implement the authentication. So we will click on this authentication tab, and we will click on this setup sign in method. Then we will click on this email and /password. We will click on enable, and we will click on save. Okay, now once it is enabled, we will go back over here, and inside our auth dot as we have created this auth services, now what we have to do is we have to create a Firebase user. So I think we have to say Firebase auth first to use all these different authentication services. So then I will create auth is equals to I think new Firebase, no, it's Firebase auth dot instance. Yeah. Okay, so once that is done, what we will do, we will create some basic, or not basic, but some functions which we can call from this sign in and sign up screens or widget. We just will provide values of email, password as arguments, and that function will take care of rest. Okay, so what is this function is going to do? So first function we want for sign in. So how can we create that? We just have to say sign in email and pass. So this is the function name, and it's going to be a future. Okay, so as for the arguments, as I mentioned before, we are going to accept two arguments. The first is going to be the email, and the second is going to be the password. Okay, so let's create the function now. So inside this function, I want to try. So of course, like there are chances that there can be some error. There are different kind of errors which can happen, being it like you haven't provided enough permissions or things of that nature. So we want to make sure we are considering and making sure we are able to debug that. So we are printing that error. If we find any error, we are going to print that. Now for the try, what we are going to do, we are going to use auth result. Okay, and we will say auth result is equals to await. Okay, now what is await? Well, basically we use await because what happens is we want to save whatever we are going. So let me write it first, and I think it will be much easier for you to understand. So auth dot sign in with email and password. Okay, so the function is already pre-created for you. We are not doing a lot actually. We're just doing some try catch and stuff like that. And that's the biggest thing, or the beauty about using packages. You can reduce a lot of code and things like that. So now we have a Firebase user. So we can say Firebase user is equals to auth result dot user, and then we can return the user. Okay, we will do that. So first, as you can see, we have auth result, and that auth result is we are waiting until this is not complete, because this sign in with email and password will take some time. It will send a request to our server, then we will accept whatever we get as a return, right? So all of that will take a little bit of time, and we want to wait for until that is done. Once that done, then only we are going to save the value of this to the auth result. Because if we don't have a wait, we are not waiting for that. In that case, initially it's definitely going to be null, right? So we are not passing the right value. So if I will not use this, it will be null, and we will be using same null everywhere. Okay, so that's not good, and that's also not useful by any means. So that's why we are waiting until this is done. Then only we are assigning the value which we get from our server to our auth result, and then we are saving that as a Firebase user. Now if you for example, this is a very simple case, but in some cases maybe you also want to have something like anonymous login, right? That is also a thing. For anonymous login, what we can do is like we can save the user ID as for his verification. So for that we can just create a simple function which is going to have user. So you can just go into your project, create a new package which is going to be models. In models, we are going to create a new model which is going to be user model. Now again, why am I creating this model? Let me create it and I'll tell you. So class, and it's user, and inside this model, so let me tell you the reason first. So in the case, as I mentioned before, if you're using something like an anonymous login, in that case we will be having the user ID which Firebase returns, which we can utilize as a user identification for different things if we are saving something, right? So we don't need a lot. We just basically inside this we just need to provide a string user ID, and that's all. Okay, or we can call it something in short like UID, and then we can just create a constructor for this. Okay, now I can use this, but before using I need to import this, so I'll import that. And once I will import that, what I will do, I will say user, and actually I'm going to create a function for this. Okay, so which is going to return a user. So I can say user from Firebase user, and inside of that I'm going to say Firebase user and user. Okay, so what is this again? This is a function which accepts Firebase user, okay, which we are getting and accepting here, to a user, so that we have the user ID and we can save that to shared preference and all, like something like that. And so what I will do, I'll say return if user is not equals to null, user, basically using the constructor, right? So UID user, which is this one, this Firebase user dot UID, as simple as that. Or if it is null, because we said if it is not equals to null, then do this. If it is null, then just return null. Okay, then just end it with a semicolon, and that's done. Okay, now we will be returning that same over here. So return user from Firebase user, and we can pass this Firebase user here, and I can end this with a semicolon. Okay, that seems done, and this is the function which we have created for sign in. But of course, first we need to sign up, then only we can sign in. So I'll create the function for sign up then. So let's do this. So I'm going to say future, and this one is called sign up with email and password. We are going to have a string, email, string, password, and also like this we will be waiting. So let me add async here. Okay, now what we will do, we will say try, we will say catch, we will get error, we are going to print them. Okay, so now let's do what we want to do in this. Same thing happened like we did for sign in. Auth result equals to await, auth dot sign up. I think it's create user with email password, right? Now we will pass the values which we received, email and password, which has been provided by the user through these arguments, and then we will say Firebase user, which is going to be Firebase user is equals to auth result dot user, and then we will return user from Firebase user, and we can say Firebase user and end that with a semicolon. Firebase typo. Okay, it's fine. It's just saying that it's not able to understand. It's not in its dictionary, okay, so we have created the function for this. Now just to complete this all, let me just create two more functions, which is going to be one which is going to be used for sign out. So we can say sign out async, and in that we are going to simply say Firebase auth. So yeah, we have to first try. This is all just to make sure we are, if this is not working, we are not just crashing the app right in the face of the user. That's really bad experience. That's why we are always trying and catching it, so that if we face any error, we are just printing them and not causing any harm to the user experience. Okay, so for this try, we are going to say return await auth dot sign out. So as I said before, these functions are pre-created already, so we don't have to do a lot in this. And also in this one, we are going to return null, so that whenever we are calling this function, we can actually accept these values. Either it is a not null value or a null value, and do things accordingly. For example, if the user is clicking on that and we are accepting a null value from this, or basically we are receiving a null value from this, we can show the user that we are not able to sign out, the snack bar or something like that. Okay, so this is for sign out, and that's all what we need. So let's go back to the sign in screen, and so what we want. So in this, what I'm thinking about, we can go ahead in our, where is the button by the way? Let's create some space, man. There's a lot of things going on. Okay, so in this this sign in button, we are going to add a gesture detector, which is going to be gesture detector, and In that we will have a property of onTap. Okay. So let's see what we have. We have sign in and sign in. That doesn't make sense. Already have an account, then why do we sign in? I think we are on the wrong screen. This is sign in, so this makes sense. This makes sense, but in the sign up, this does not make sense. Okay, now it's fine. So let me go to the sign in screen. Okay, and okay, so this is the sign in screen, and inside the gesture detector, as I mentioned before, we are going to create a function. That function is going to get or sign us in. So I'm going to say sign in, and then we don't have to accept any parameters in this because these strings are kind of global, so we can access it directly here. So the first thing which I will do, if form key dot current state dot validate. So what was that? Well, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure we are validating that if we have any kind of text available or are these empty. Okay, we don't want the user to left them empty and click on sign in and the function will be called. We don't want to do that, right? So we are first checking if they are validated or not. Only if they are validated, then only we will consider forward. So if I will save this now and let me call this function when we are clicking on this sign in. So in the onTap function, we are going to call this function. If I will save that and click on sign in, you can see this is what was happening. Okay, so I have email ID. I think we should just have some space in there. If I will click on this again, you can see. So this is the material kind of validator which we have. So if you are not providing these values, if the value is empty, this is showing this error. And if we have something over here, for example, while this is not correct, there is a regress method which I'll show you if we have time, but you can see. So right now we just have a condition that it is empty. We can have different, we can even create a function which will check if the email is kind of how emails are, and that function will return true, false, things like that. Okay, so let's continue. So now we have checked if the user is validated, then only we are following this function, or else we will not. So what do we want to do now? So well, we want to call that function which we used in this. So how can we do that? We have to first create use this class. So I'm going to say auth service and create a variable which is going to be called auth service is equals to new auth service. Make sense? And that I can say auth service dot sign in email and pass, and we have this email and password available, and I can just add this there. This will take care of things like trying and catching and things of that nature, and I'll say await. Okay, now one thing, okay, so for that I need to use async, not here but here. Okay, now what we want, so one thing which I also want, I want the user to be able to see what is happening, right? If he is clicking on this button, there will be no change. That is not a good user experience. We want to show a loading here. So how we can do that? We will create a function, or actually a data type of tool, and we will create a variable out of it which is going to be called is loading, and in that is loading we are going to set that initially as false. Okay, now we will use this variable, come over here and paste that and have a question mark. So this is how the different conditions work. This is a conditional kind of, so how it works is basically we say this is a boolean value, so we can have a condition over here as we have over here, like value is empty. Basically we are providing a boolean value saying that this question mark. So if it is correct, then the first thing will be followed, which can be like container for example, and if it is false, then after this whatever there is, it will be followed. So that's how this conditional statement works. So now inside this container, what we actually want, we want every container have a child. So I'm going to say this container have a child which is center, and inside the center I have a child which is a circular progress indicator. Now if I will save this, okay, so what we want, so basically whenever the user clicks and sign in and we are able to validate him, we will set a state and set the is loading to true, and Once this is done, then we will set state, and set is loading to, we don't actually have to must do this, but just to make sure it's like the good experience, even if the app is very slow or something of that nature. So once this is all done, what we also want to navigate the user to the home screen by using push replacement, so that he is not able to click on back and come back to this screen. Then we are going to use a material page root. Inside that we will have a builder, in that we will have context. After that we will say, where do we want to go? We want to go in home. So this is not created yet, so let's just create a basic structure for this. I'm going to say import material stateful widget of home, and now I can use that. So if I go back to the sign in, I can click on that, click over here, click on import. I can end this with a semicolon. So now this will take care of sending us to the home screen once this authentication is done. One thing is very important. We want to make sure that, like, we are only sending the user if we are able to log in or sign in. We don't want to send the user if this is returning not a right value. So as you can see, this sign in email and password is returning as the user ID, right? So we can check that if it is null or not. So I can just say dot, then this is future. So inside that, then I can say, as you can see, it's giving us how. So there will be a value which it will return, and we can use that value here. So I'll say value. This is what the function is returning. So I can say if the value is not equals to null, that's all what we want, right? We don't want to save it or something right now, but that's all what we want to check. So if it's not equals to null, then we will send that to this. And also before that, I'll just make the set state to false, and then I'll send that to user. Okay, so I think we have implemented sign in first. I know. We have to actually implement the sign up first, because we will not be able to sign in if we are not signed up, if you understand that, right? So we will click on sign up now. It will be same thing, not much difference. We will create a function over here, sign up, and we don't need arguments over here. We will just say if form key dot current state dot validate. Okay, so it's basically going to validate the form in the current state, whatever is there written. And we are going to call this function from, where are you, this particular sign up button. And I'm going to save this, and let's test it out. So if I click on sign up now, okay, we have some errors as it says. So okay, so it says the Firebase overkin package and stuff like that. Okay, it's not able to understand. So whenever you are using these kind of packages, one thing which you can do is, let me see if it's an error over there. It's not. Okay, so the whole problem they are facing is it's not able to understand this. So what we can do, we can close the app and run it again. Also, one thing which is very important if you're using an Android simulator, I don't think it will be a problem right now, but you will face a Multidex problem later on. So we will fix it once the sign in and sign up is up and running. We will fix that Multidex problem so that there is no issue on continuing on an Android device. Okay, so it took a lot more time than expected, but anyhow, it's done now. So these are the sign in and sign up screen which we have. So we don't have a back, we have sign in and sign up. Okay, so as we were in the process of using all the sign up methods or functions which we have created, so we have already set up the sign in, but we were setting it up for the sign up process. But as for the people who are using Android, they will face a problem of Multidex. So let's fix that, how we can do that. So for that, you have to go inside the Android app, and then you have to go inside the main. Okay, I don't know, like in the build, yeah, you have to go inside the build.gradle, and over there you have to write Multidex enabled. I hope it works. And what is the next thing? Well, you have to add an implementation as well. Let's copy that from our last project. So if I go back to the build.gradle, this is the one. So just copy this. As I mentioned before as well, the source code GitHub link is available in the description. So go ahead and copy that. The minimum SDK version can be increased as well. Okay, it's not a must. The app will function perfectly fine, but it's just a recommendation if you want. Okay, so once that is done, it will be working perfectly fine in the Android as well. Okay, so now let's continue forward. So in the sign up, what we want to do is we have the form key.current state and validate. Now after that, as we did before in the sign in screen, we will create auth service, whatever you want to call it, a new auth service, and then we will say auth service. Where are we? Yeah, it's just directly auth service dot sign up with email and password. We provided that, and just end this. Similarly, we would like to show some kind of loading. So I'll say boolean is loading. Okay, you may ask, why did I use this underscore? This is if you are using a private variable. So this is now private. We don't want to like confuse it. So let me do that over here as well. So I'll just click on this variable, click on refactor, rename, and now I can just add that underscore and I can say refactor. So it will update it everywhere it is used. Good, right? So now let's do the same thing which we did for the sign in. Set state, then we will say is loading is equals to true initially, and we will use the then property. Then we will receive a value. We will use that value by using these curly braces, and then we can say if value is not equals to null, then use navigator dot push replacement. Okay, material page root builder context, and then we will, where do we want? Well, we want to go to the home. Okay, so this should work. We can also do this. Before that, we can set it to false. Also, we can await, but we don't have to actually, but we don't want to like miss that even. So let's use that. Anything else? We don't want this. Okay, so we have the navigator. We are using push replacement to make sure we are replacing the screen, not stacking the screen one above the another. And that should actually work out. Like it should send us to a black screen. So let's do some random. So let's say random at the rate. So that's the username actually. So we'll say random. So first let me show you what it will. So I haven't entered the password, so it is showing me error for that. So I'll enter the password. Okay. We don't want to show our password. No, that's not good, right? How we can do that? So we will go ahead in the password field, and there is a property in text form field which is obscure text, and we just have to set it to true. And now if I will save this, we have one error, which is this push replacement. Okay, I think I did some backspace over here. Yeah, anyways, what we did, we basically added that obscure text over here. I am going to copy that, go to the sign in screen and implement this over there as well. So we have this password option. Inside that we will paste this. So if I will save this now, you can see it's not visible anymore. Okay, so that's okay. Now we can say random@gmail.com. Now I can click on sign up, but nothing is happening. So what is up? So if I go to the sign up, I can see that the formatting when the validation is done, these are the things which we want. So the first thing is loading true. Okay, what may be happening, the loading is turning to be true, but we're not able to see that. So we have to implement it over here. I'll say if loading is true, then show this container. If it is false, then show this form. And also we want to provide it an initial value which is going to be false, and Inside the container we will have a child of center, then we will have a child of circular progress indicator, and if I will save this now, you can see because that was loading, so now it's showing this loading in all, but for some reason it's not completing. So if I reload this, we don't have that random user which we created just now. So there is some problem. Let's see what we are doing wrong. So what I'm doing, I'm saying auth service dot sign up. Let's remove the await. Not sure we need that or not, so let me save that again. And we want to restart this app. Okay, so inside we will go to sign up, and we will say something random. We'll say random@gmail.com. We will say something random, and I can click on sign up. So this is, it says the failed assertion password not equals to null is now. Okay, so this is the password is null right now. So the reason for that is when I'm entering the password, it is being saved to the email, so I have to say that password. Okay, so in the on change, make sure that password is, we are setting the value to the password. So let's make sure that we are doing it here as well. Done. So if I restart the app again, we can click on sign up, and in the name we will do random. That's the thing, right? You know, when we in the auth we uses this print, that's the reason. Now we were able to see the error which we faced. So random@gmail.com. Password will be, click on sign up, and now you can see a black screen which is our home screen. So we have successfully integrated sign up system. Now let's see if we are able to get the email in our Firebase. So you can see random@gmail and the created sign in. This is the user ID. So yeah, we are successfully have implemented the sign in and sign up. So what's next? Now we want to implement that home screen. We want to use that cloud Firestore and stuff like that.